So, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, so Dr. Mukesh Chakraborty has already joined, so we can start now. So, good evening, everyone. Hasan Nabok, and this is your 11th class of this research course. So, you can see Dr. Chakraborty, he is my teacher, but I want to introduce you. Many of you know him. So it's my privilege and my honor to introduce Dr. Chakraborty. So Dr. Pritesh Chakraborty is presently working as an assistant professor of English at Acharya Sukumar Sen Mahavidyalaya, West Bengal. He is a former Fulbright foreign language teacher assistant at New York University from 2018 to 2019. He has obtained his PhD from West Bengal State University. He has obtained his MPhil degree from Calcutta University. He is researching on superhero comic books of Batman and Indian comics. He is interested in creative writing and has published a long history of Gimli direct publishing. Now, with these very few words, I welcome Dr. Chakraborty. So, yes.
Thank you, Hassan, for that detailed introduction. And I have a PPT for the presentation, but I'm not sure if I can go full screen. I'll try to do that. Just give me a minute. Um, is my PPT visible in
Yes,
full screen
yes.
mode?
Not full screen mode, but it is visible.
Um, Okay, I don't know. I don't understand why it never comes in a full screen mode, but I hope it is visible enough for you to understand whatever is written and whatever is being mentioned here, right?
Yes, yes, fine.
Okay, all right. So today we are going to have a discussion on how to write, and I have improvised a bit how to type a research proposal, some do's and don'ts. Why type? Because we don't write anything anymore. I mean, you can write something down, but I would advise you to start typing a research proposal, sorry, rather than writing it on a piece of paper or in a exercise book or in a diary or whatever, because those days are well past behind us. So we are going to type a research proposal. Let's go down to business right away. And Hassan, do tell me when I'm overdue of time, because I cannot see the time in front of me. Do tell me when my 45 minutes of talking is over, so that I can take up few questions within the last 15 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
So, what is a research proposal? We need to understand what are we going to deal with, because as I can understand, you, whoever is attending this boring session, it has already known or has already understood how to select a research topic or a research area. Now, this particular presentation, this particular session is on is trying to tell you as to how a research proposal can be constructed, how a research proposal can be created or composed. So we need to understand what is a research proposal. So it's a document where the prospective supervisor vents his, her, their corrective frustrations. So you can understand that we people
Sir,
who,
he has not
yes,
changed.
oh, sorry. Um, Now is it is it visible? Like, is the second slide visible?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. I'll just stop.
So this is third one.
Okay, no, I want this one.
Yes.
Is this visible now? Okay.
Fine.
All right. So, what is a research proposal? I was saying that a research proposal is a document where the prospective supervisor vents their corrective frustrations. Like people like us who are trying to become or are trying to get into the position of a supervisor, or who might be trying to now go through research proposals ourselves, have found out that we we carry a kind of a grudge from our past years, where our prospective supervisors and the board of study members and whoever was trying to interview us on our research proposal uh, found a number of uh, areas which could be corrected. And it's not a bad thing, but don't get frustrated yourself, because there will be a number of areas where a correction must be needed, a correction should be made. So I'm just jokingly saying this, that this is an area of corrective frustrations, but this is something that tells you that you need to have patience with your research proposal. Now, a research proposal is where you state what you are going to do for the next 4 to 5 years. So this is like a plan. This is like, we often find this funny post in Facebook, that there is this young lovers, often called derogatorily maybe Nibba and Nibbi, who plan on their first meeting, or who plan 1 month into their relationship, that what names are they going to have for their babies. So if they can do that kind of planning, why can't we do this kind of planning? Like, plan the research proposal so that you have a kind of a blueprint, you have a kind of a plan for what you are going to do for the next 4 or 5 years, because that is the time that is typically the time that a PhD scholar takes to um, put forth her or their thesis. The thing is different for an MPhil dissertation, which is usually 2 years, but I am assuming that most of you are trying to go into this PhD thesis writing or PhD research proposal. Now it shows, your research proposal shows how much you have already researched on your topic. When you are making a proposal, you have to make it as if you have done at least some research on your topic. Why? We will see later. And we are going to call the research proposal as RP. So the RP is showing that you are rigged for a long and arduous journey. If you have read that poem called The North Ship, I think it was The North Ship, where there were these 3 ships that went in different directions, but this North Ship was rigged for a very long and difficult journey. Research proposal is a proposal where you are showing that you are ready to undertake that journey. It carries the crux of your thoughts. Like, you think a lot of things, and then you glean from those thoughts some concentrated ideas, that okay, this is what I am going to do. I have these ideas, I have these many ideas, but in my research proposal I am going to talk about these things. So they should be more direct, they should be more to the point. As I said earlier, it is a blueprint of your grand design. You need to have a plan, you need to have like pages of plans for your grand design. Imagine any Hollywood movie where some money heist is going to take place, and if you remember how they plan for a month, and there are like screenshots, there are like small shots, less lengthy shots showing that what these dacoits are going to do. So we are going to have this blueprint for a grand plan to get ourselves a PhD degree or an MPhil degree. Now, selecting the topic was laying the egg, and writing the research proposal is incubating it. You have already laid the egg, like your research idea, your topic, your broad area, your concentrated area is all ready. Now you have to sit on it, যেটাকে বাংলায় বলে তা দেওয়া। I hope you all understand বাংলা। তো তা দেওয়ার ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল লেখা, বা রিসার্চ প্রপোজালটা হচ্ছে ডিমের ওপরে বসে যতটা পারা যায় তা দেওয়া, যাতে ডিম ফুটে থিসিস বেরোয়। ওকে, নেক্সট, what are the types of research proposals? Mostly they are PhD research proposals, but you can find MPhil research proposals, you can find postdoctoral research proposals, then there are short-term research for fellowships. More or less their approach is similar. The only difference between PhD and the other three is that the PhD usually takes a longer length of time than the other three. The last one, short term, is, its name suggests that it's not for a long term thing. It might be for a year, 2 year or 3 year. The postdoctoral is usually of 2 year or 1 year, and MPhil is in our country only for 2 years. So these are the 4 kinds of research proposals, and at the end of the session, if anyone is going for the other 3 types, they might have specific questions from these types of research proposals. However, I am not qualified enough to talk on postdoctoral research proposals, because I have not done postdoctoral yet, and anywhere I had applied for a postdoctoral research, I was rejected. So if anybody is here who is already a PhD and is gunning for a postdoctoral position, I might not be the right person to talk and learn from me, but failures teach us a lot of lessons, so I can talk on that also, like why have I failed and what are the areas which I can also improve. Next is the more important things, the more boring part of this discussion or this lecture is points to keep in mind before you start writing the proposal. Okay, the number one is, you cannot write a proposal in a week or even a month. It has to be cooking in your word processor or your head for at least a year or a half, like for 6 months at least. You come across a PhD notification and you think you are going to apply for that position, and you don't have already the idea of the proposal, then you better wait for 6 months. You just sit down and you start typing, not writing, typing the idea of the research proposal, first draft of the research proposal, before you are actually ready to go for this interview or to send this research proposal to a prospective supervisor or to a university wherever you are applying. Now, if you are undertaking research for the first time, then the ideal time to think about your proposal is the final year of your present degree. Start talking with your prospective supervisors in the home institution, university. Sorry for the small letter I here. You need to start thinking about your research. You need to start your research proposal when you are in the final year of your present degree. Like if you are doing your masters right now, start thinking about your research. Like you already have an idea about your research topic. You now need to understand, you now need to start drafting your research proposal. And one of the things is that you can hobnob, you can talk with your present supervisors, whoever is the teacher in the institution or the university, or if you know someone who is offering supervision, that those people might help you in chalking out a plan. But you need to start early. That is the main point. You need to start early. You cannot do it in a very short amount of time, unless of course you are a genius, which many of you might be, but I was not, and I'm sharing my experience with you that I started early. Like when I was in the final year of my masters, like when I was in the second year, I had decided what I had to do. And as Hassan said that I am doing some kind of research on comic books, I had decided that I'm going to do some research on comic books for my MPhil and then my PhD. Now, talk to people if you know anyone who have already written a successful proposal, especially if they are from your area. I mean, since you are in the academia, you would know people who are already doing PhD, right? And you might get inspired from those people. If you do not know anyone like that, then of course you can take you can take to Facebook or you can take to LinkedIn, and you can try to find people who are in your area, like who have submitted successful proposals especially if they are from your area. Otherwise, if they do not belong to your area, the research proposals might be very different. Of course, if we are humanities students, then we should only talk to humanities people, because science and commerce and other kinds of proposals might be very different. Of course, fourth point is pay attention to the grammar and vocabulary. A great idea can be marred with conspicuous grammatical mistakes. I mean, there are instances where some very beautiful idea could not be communicated because there wasn't enough academic vocabulary, or there was some kind of a misunderstanding of grammar. So pay attention to grammar and vocabulary. I mean, I would suggest that before you start typing the research proposal, though there is Grammarly and though there is like autocorrect in the word processors, whatever word processors you follow, I would say that you keep a grammar book handy, because no matter what, our we have learned second language, we have learned English as a second language, and in that way an academic enterprise of this level needs to be more fine than we think it needs to be. Do some research on research, like try to understand the trend of the area you are about to take up. Know the areas that can be developed in your selected topic. So you just can't do something in a void, right? You cannot just wake up one fine morning and start typing, oh, this is my research proposal and I am going to do this, without having the knowledge of what has happened earlier. You should not start your research proposal, and that is why point 3 might come handy, because a person who has recently submitted a research proposal, who has recently got into a university, would be able to guide you through this particular problem. Now, this is the more practical part, the more workshopish part, if you can, if you want to see it in that way, doing it. So the first thing that you should think about is the title, or that might not be the first thing that you should think about, but what it should be is a one sentence thing. It should not be too lengthy, should have a catchy phrase and then a subtitle explaining it, and should reflect the theme as far as possible. So name the research after you have composed the proposal. I mean, name the baby after it has started showing its true colors, and the pun is intended. Like if you have a Kana Chele, you cannot name him or her, him Poddolochon. So you need to see if your Chele is Kana or not. I mean, of course, this is just a example. Many of us have Cheles and Mays, so I don't mean that. But the research proposal is like a baby, and you need to see how it has panned out before you put a title on it. So the title should always be kept in mind, but it should be done after you have typed out your research proposal, after you have typed out the 5th or the 10th draft of your research proposal. Only then name it, because the name should reflect the theme as far as possible. Next, the synopsis or the abstract, and it should be usually between 300 to 500 words. Okay, so I'm saying this from my experience, because it's usually like that, but it depends from university to university. It depends from institution to institution. Some people do not want a synopsis or abstract. Some people want it. Some want a detailed plan of 2000 words. Some do not want you to exceed 500 words, so on and so forth. But usually you can have an abstract ready for your own reference within 300 to 500 words. So as I said, word limit, if any, as prescribed by the institution. Now it is the substance of your research. It is where you express what you are going to do. Okay, this is the place where you have to control the language. You need to tell, but you need to tell in a nutshell. The research is in a nutshell. It's a kind of a symbolic way in which you express yourself. Okay, of course include basic points like, my research is doing this, this and this. I am going to read this book. I am going to follow this writer. I am going to follow that writer. I'm going to ridicule, or I am going to attack that writer, like that. Okay, or that idea. I am going to attack the colonial, pro-colonial idea of, say, whoever is the writer of that book. I remember Griffith, but I'm forgetting the first person who wrote. There were like 3 writers. Empire Writes Back. So if you're attacking that idea, then you need to say that you're going to disagree with that particular idea or thesis. And you can also disagree with a thesis written earlier, submitted earlier. You can have a quarrel with some other scholar. So you don't need to go for instances and examples. Like, don't include, for example, I am going to say this. Don't include in your synopsis or abstract any line like this. For instance, for example, you just need to work it as if you're writing a précis. If you remember what a précis is, it's like an amplified précis, where you do not use any epithets, where you do not use any kind of unnecessary words. Okay, so in an abstract and a synopsis, you don't need any instances or examples or any kind of a rhetorical furnish in your synopsis. It should be very straightforward. Next is the log line, or your proposal in a single line or 2. So it is a super synopsis of the research. Okay, like it's the true précis. It's the abstract of the abstract. And say you have 2 seconds and you need to propose a person you have fallen in love with. What will you say? You have just 2 seconds. I mean, the only thing that comes to my mind is that I would say, okay, I love you, this is my number, call me. That's it. If that works, works. If that doesn't work, well, it doesn't work. So the log line or the proposal in a single line or 2 is like that. You have like 2 seconds and you need to express your love for a person whom you adore, or whom you want to spend the rest of your life with. Okay. Now I can give an example of this, like the research will, or aims to, or analyzes, so and so on and so forth, with the help of so and so theoretical framework, critical idea, to reinforce, rediscover and analyze. I have found out that this word rediscover is really loved by many supervisors, and this word has some kind of a magical charm, like rediscover. I don't know what it really entails, but I just used it here because I wanted to give an example. Like, this is how you write a log line, that this research aims to find out with the help of the theoretical model of discourse analysis, that um, Dalit literature is still a niched area in the mainstream literature, and so on and so forth, something like that. Okay. All right. Next, the fourth part of your research proposal may have this fourth part, which is the introduction to the proposed study, which is within 500 words, usually. So this is a short literature review of sorts, and you mention your reason to take up the present research. Why do you want to do this research? What is there? What is so unique about this particular issue, and what has happened earlier, and what is the future of this study? So this is a kind of a, as I said, a literature review. This will come if you do a research on your research, like what has happened till date in the area, on the topic of your research, and why do you want to do this? মানে কোন ধরনের কুকুরে কামড়েছে, সাধারণ কুকুরে কামড়েছে না পাগল কুকুরে কামড়েছে? You have to say, like we say in Bangla, that পাগল কুকুরে কামড়েছে যে আমি এটা করব. So research is something like that, like why do you even want to go for a research where you want to talk about something that has apparently no connection with your present curricula of teaching or of your academia, but there always is, and that is your expertise. That is where you have to win the argument that my work is important because of this, because I want to show this, because nobody has shown it earlier, though there has been research on this, but this is something that is important from my perspective. Now the next point is major research works reviewed, at least 20 to 25 names in alphabetical order, and you can make gist of books and articles, both national and international, that you have read. This is the difficult part. This is the part where your backs will strain. This is the part where you will burn your midnight oil, and this is the part where you either win or lose, because if you really do this 20 books, I mean, I don't know if I've heard it from somewhere else, but I often say this, that if you cheat from one book, if you take up without giving proper citations from one book, then that is plagiarism. But if you pull up the same information from 20, it's research. So before you write, or when you are going to write a research proposal, do read at least 10 to 20 to 25 books or articles on your area, so that you have a good idea, you have a good hold on whatever has happened earlier and what can happen in the future. And you can even write just a line or a two, kind of a paraphrase, kind of an annotated bibliography, which is also available in the net, like you can get it down from the net, but make sure that you read at least what you have downloaded, because the supervisors, the examiners would be very quick to understand whether you have really read it or you have read it from Wikipedia. So next is identification of research gap. This is also very important, and it should be within approximately 300 words. So what has not been talked about yet? Whatever research you have read, whatever books you have read on your topic, on your area, there must be something that lays dormant, lays silent, or something that has been neglected altogether. You point that out. You become a toddler, you become a kid, you become a curious kid, and you bring out your family's little secrets, because now it's your family. Like now the researcher who has researched on your topic, say 5 years ago, is kind of your brother or kind of your dad, and now you need to make him pay for doing the research by pointing out what he has not talked about. this is our rice, এটাই আমাদের ভাত, মানে that's why we live, to bring out the mistakes of other people. And that makes for the identification of the research gap. And why? That is very painful to understand. Why? কেন ওটাকে নিয়ে কথা হয়নি, क्यों इस विषय पर चर्चा नहीं हुई है, why is it that this research gap exists? I believe if you can explain the why, 10% of your research is already done. So if I were an interviewer, I will not expect that you already know why, because you are going to do research to understand why there is a gap. But if you can guess, if you can understand that this could be the reason as to why there is a gap, then you are the Gurudev there. Okay, but it takes some research, it takes some time for you to understand why. But what has to be pointed out by you? Why are you here? Why are you going to do this thing? Now, this is your contribution to the existing research. All research proposals, all research will be inevitably contribution, addition to the already existing research on the topic. Otherwise, your research proposal falls flat. You say, suppose if you want to do research on say Indian writing in English, and you talk about Canadian literature, then initially I won't see as to how your research is going to add to the already existing research, unless you are talking about Indian Canadian English writers. So there's always something that you can cook up, there is always something that you can find out. Okay, next, objectives of the proposed study. So by now you might be thinking all of these things are the same, like why do you want to do this research, and if you see this part, introduction to the proposed study, your reason to take up the research, and then what has not been talked about, and in objectives of the proposed study, what is the difference? And here is the difference, that you are going to say whatever you are going to say, like are कहना क्या चाहते हो, that is you are answering to this question from this professor. What are you going to do in this part? Make bullet points for the things you want to achieve, objectives. What are you going to have after you have done your research? Are you going to become the Prime Minister of the country after your research is complete? Are you going to go to space after your research is complete? Are you going to solve the hunger problem of our country after your research is complete? What are you thinking? What is your objective? Your objective could be to fill in the gap in the research that has already been undertaken, which is covered in the earlier sections. But importantly, you can say that this will open up doors for further research into your area of research. You are creating an opportunity for your friends to come, or your juniors to come in the same area and do some research. This is a kind of a self-referential space that you have gotten yourselves into when you're talking about research, because research in itself, humanities research in itself, is not something that can be proved with substantial developments in something, but still you can point out to the lack of a particular way of looking at things in the academia. For example, you can write in this way: establish, like your first point or your objective is to establish a dialogue between between something and something, comma, create a space for discussion on whatever you're researching on, make people aware of whatever you are making people aware of, prove that whatever you are going to prove, etc., so on and so forth. These are the lines with which you can begin your objectives of the proposed study. My objective is to establish a dialogue between artificial intelligence um, and Dalit studies, say. How? I don't know, but that's up to you. You will say that this is how you are going to establish a dialogue or create a space for discussion, like something that has not been discussed yet. Say suppose Hassan's theme is very interesting. He's doing this research on masculinity in Dalit studies, or masculine studies in Dalit literature, which has not really been discussed a lot. So he is creating a space for discussion on this area. That is a brilliant thing that he is doing. Or make people aware of the fallouts of studying throughout your life in an institution where English is the first language of English is the medium of instruction. Or prove that in my case comics carry subversive tendencies that is inherent in popular culture, so on and so forth. Next, you need to jot down the major research questions. You need to make some hypothesis about your research, about your thesis. This is relatively easy because you just need to say what is the question, why is the question, because there has been a gap in the study. We have pointed out in the research gap called lacuna. How are you going to prove it? Are you going to collect data? Are you going to study very minutely the texts at hand? Are you going to do some field research? Okay, for whom? Who is your target audience? Are they the Dalit population of the country? Are they the juvenile population of the country? Are they children? Are they older people? Are they second language learners? Whatever. Within what time frame? Which period of time are you researching on? Many people miss it. You have to say, I am researching on this topic with reference to this time period between 1940 to 2020, 80 years time period. That is very essential. Okay. In which situations you wanna, like, in which situation, like are you talking about the reverberations of partition? So that period is 1940 to 1980 is the period where this reverberation happened? Or are you, if you're talking about the colonial onslaught of the British and its fallout on the women of the Indian society, of the Indian culture, which situation are you talking about? Because the time period will tell you just the time period, but you need to be very concretely aware of the situation that you're talking about, the context rather, not, I mean, the situation is a non-academic word, I would say, the context. Okay, because in the time there could be different contexts. You need to mention the context in the research question, that I am going to question this, radically analyze this in the context of so on and so forth. Research methodology, what is your critical theoretical tool of study and analysis, whether it is discourse analysis, whether it is feminism, whether it is subaltern studies, whether it is Dalit studies, whatever your theoretical tool of analysis is, you have to mention it. How are you going to gather data? Are you going to go to every house and take a kind of a census? Are you going to the library and read until your spinal cord breaks? What is your way of gathering data? What data are you talking about? Books, articles, newspapers, videographs, whatever. Now, you need to talk about the milestones that you need to set for each quarter of the study, because once you get into the research, many of you who are already doing research would know that you need to submit a report every 6 months or every 4 months, whatever the institution asks you of. So approximately you can have like 10 milestones for 5 years of research. Like within the first 2 semester you will be reading these books. In the second 2 semesters you will be doing field research. During the third and fourth semester you are going to go abroad and talk to or have interviews with these people, so on and so forth. Okay, and then you need to have a working bibliography. Like when you start writing a research proposal, make sure that you are compiling a list of books that are going to help you do that research. You don't need to read them all, but you need to be aware of the books that exist. Even here, earlier researchers, Shodh Ganga, ProQuest, Theses and Dissertations Online, they might help you to track down the books that have already been used by other researchers in the area that you are going to work in, and make a list of those books alphabetically. Have a separate word file in the folder which is only for bibliography. You find a book, you type the name of the book alphabetically in that particular word file. Make a list of things. Okay, so to conclude, I can say that do not expect it to get it in one go. I mean, you will have a number of hiccups before you finally get through, unless otherwise you are already well prepared, which can happen. Like in many cases I have seen people write a research proposal and it was accepted and that person was doing research, but that is not the rule, that is the exception. And a research proposal is a Complan boy. If anybody remembers what a Complan boy is, Dekho ami barchi mami, or a Complan girl. Sorry, I didn't include a girl over here. This thing is growing, but initially you have to be very careful to make it self-reliant. After a time, the research proposal will grow automatically, but the first few steps are going to be difficult. So it keeps growing, okay, and you need to keep feeding it. The most important thing that you feed it is bibliography, books. What are the books that you can find? What are the areas of those books that you can feed into your research proposal? And also, when you have like a 5,000 word document, because you have been very diligent, weed out whatever is unnecessary. Don't stick to unnecessary details, because that will encumber your research rather than help it. And as George Orwell had said in Politics and the English Language, that break any of these rules sooner than say anything outright barbarous. So you do not need to listen to anything that I have been saying for the last 40 plus minutes if it doesn't suit you. So research proposal is kind of a objective subjective thing. Break any rules that you think will help you actually achieve your goal, which is kind of a paradoxical, but this is also possible. You don't need to follow these things, like these ideas and rules to make it. You can just write it out in a single paragraph, in a single page, and you can submit it to whoever you want to. In my question answer session, if you need the names of any books, which is, I think there could be thousands of books on research on how to write a research proposal, but I don't think any of them is useful until and unless you start typing it, and then you can go to these books. Let me know in the question answer session if you need the names of books. Of course, MLA 9th edition or the MLA, the latest edition of MLA, APA, whatever research manuals are there, you can simply follow them, because they also have a lot of information. They also have a lot of ideas about how to write a research proposal. Okay, so that's it for today. You can send your questions and comments at this email ID, and thank you so much for listening to me and not falling asleep, but I don't know if you have fallen asleep. And now I can take up questions.
Yes. So if you have any question, please ask.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I have one question, sir. You told that a research proposal should have a topic title. Should we or give a subtitle always, or if we we do not give a subtitle, what will happen then, sir?
Well, if your title or topic is self-explanatory, then you don't need to give any subtitle. But usually, if you find the number of research proposals that I have seen, usually they do carry a kind of a subtitle, which is a kind of an explanation of what you are saying in your title. But it's up to you, it's up to your supervisor, that whether you want a subtitle or not. There is no written hard and fast rule which says that you need to have a subtitle no matter what. কেউ মাথার দিব্যি দেয়নি যে সাবটাইটেল মানে দিতেই হবে, বাট সাবটাইটেল is kind of a unwritten rule in the research area. The reason is that in your topic you are usually a little catchy, like you need to catch the attention of whoever is listening to you or hearing you, but the subtitle is usually a kind of a explanation to that catchy phrase, which is not self-explanatory in its own way. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any more questions? I don't see any questions in the chat box. So if you have any other questions, we can go there. I want you to have questions, like I want you to share your experiences of your writing research proposals. Like you might have already written something. You can share your experience of where you are stuck. I might be able to give you a tip or two as to where you are stuck.
বলো তোমরা করো স্যারের সাথে প্যাসিভ
বাংলাতে বলতে পারো?
Sir, one more question. If I want to do research, sir, I have not started yet, but in future I will do. But sir, one question: should we read the books written by the writer, like novels or poems or like that, or should we read the critical books first on the writers?
Definitely, if you are doing a research on a author and his or her works, then I would suggest you should first read the primary texts, the stories, the novels, the poems of that particular author before you go into the critical analysis or before you go into the critical books. However, this is not a black and white thing. Why can't we do this? Like, why can't we read the novels on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and read the critical material on Thursday, Friday and Saturday? What happens to Sunday? You go to a movie on Saturday. You don't read anymore because that will jam your brains. No, I mean that depends. So your research, what are you going to do your research on? Are you going to do a research on a particular author? Then you must read the primary texts. Otherwise, if you are doing a research on the criticism written on that particular author, then you have to then also you have to read the texts written by the author, but your focus will soon shift onto the critical material available on critical material written on that particular author. Okay, so I think I tried to answer this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
আর একটা কথা, যদি মানে কেউ বাংলায় কোনো প্রশ্ন করতে চায় করতেই পারে। আই বিলিভ দিস ইজ নট আ ভেরি ফর্মাল মিটিং অ্যান্ড this it is we are here to learn and we can use any language. I can also talk in Hindi. If anybody wants to communicate in Hindi, that person is also welcome.
স্যার বলছিলাম যে কোনো যদি মানে ট্রেন্ডিং যেগুলো হয় মানে গুগলে যদি আমরা সার্চ করি ট্রেন্ডিং টপিক থেকে স্যার কিভাবে সিলেক্ট করতে পারবো যে আমি একটা টপিক যেটা এটার উপরে কাজ কম হয়েছে বা এটার উপরে আমি এক্সপ্লোর করতে পারবো নিজে গিয়ে, মানে এই মেথডটা কি হওয়া উচিত?
দেখো, তোমার প্রশ্নটা যদি এটা হয়ে থাকে যে টপিকটা কিভাবে সিলেক্ট করবে, তাহলে তো বলবো যে এটা আমার আজকের মানে আলোচনার মধ্যে ছিল না যে টপিকটা কিভাবে সার্চ করব।
স্যার আগের ক্লাসগুলো থেকে এটুকু বুঝতে পেরেছি যে টপিক চুজ করতে গেলে প্রচুর পড়তে হবে, মানে ক্রিটিক্যাল অ্যানালিসিস পড়তে হবে, বই পড়তে হবে যে টপিকের উপর আমি করতে চাইছি, নালে তো একটা ক্লিয়ার ভিউ পয়েন্ট পাবো না যে কিভাবে আমি এগোবো।
একদম। কিন্তু ধরো আমি ইমাজিন করছি যে তুমি অলরেডি টপিক সিলেক্ট করে নিয়েছো, ঠিক আছে। এবার যদি তোমার প্রশ্নটা এটা হয় যে ট্রেন্ডিং যে আইডিয়াসগুলো আছে সেখান থেকে কিভাবে সিলেক্ট করব, আমার মতে আমি এরকমভাবে মানে ভেন ডায়াগ্রাম করার চেষ্টা করি, এরকম গোল গোল করে ভাবি যে আমার ব্রড এরিয়াটা কি। ধরো আমার পছন্দের এরিয়া হচ্ছে কালচারাল স্টাডিজ, অনেক বড় একটা গোল, ঠিক আছে। তার মধ্যে আর একটা ছোট গোল হচ্ছে আমার পছন্দের এরিয়া বেরোলো হচ্ছে পপুলার কালচার, কারণ কালচারাল স্টাডিজের মধ্যে পপুলার কালচার একটা পার্ট। আবার পপুলার কালচারের গোলের মধ্যে বেরোলো হচ্ছে কমিক স্টাডিজ, ওই ডিমের মধ্যে ডিম, ওই যে ডিমের যে কথাটা বললাম, তো বড় সব থেকে বড় ডিমের ওপরে যখন তুমি বসলে ডিম ফাটলো, দেখলে আর একটা ডিম বেরোলো, যাব বাবা এটা কি হলো, এটা হচ্ছে যে এর মধ্যে আরও জিনিস আছে। পপুলার কালচারের মধ্যে আমি দেখলাম কমিক স্টাডিজের একটা ডিম আছে, এবার আমি কমিক স্টাডিজের ডিমের ওপরে তা দিতে শুরু করলাম, তার মধ্যে আবার একটা ডিম বেরোলো আমেরিকান সুপার হিরো কমিক বুকস, আমি সেটার ওপরে কনসেন্ট্রেট করলাম। তো ধরো রিয়া, তোমার মানে ফেভারিট এরিয়া কি, লাইক হুইচ এরিয়া ডু ইউ প্রেফার, লাইক তোমার মানে কি কোন এরিয়াটা ভালো লাগে, কোন অথরকে ভালো লাগে?
পোস্টমডার্নিজম ভাবছি।
পোস্টমডার্নিজম অনেক বড় একটা এরিয়া, এবার তার মধ্যে তোমাকে ভাবতে হবে তুমি পোস্টমডার্নিজম নিয়ে কি কাজ করতে চাও। পোস্টমডার্নিজমের কোনো অথর নিতে চাও, কোনো জনরা নিতে চাও, কোনো টেন্ডেন্সি নিতে চাও, কোনো 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 পার্টিকুলার এরিয়া স্টাডিজ নিতে চাও, কি নিতে চাও, ঠিক আছে। পোস্টমডার্নিজমের মধ্যে আবার তোমাকে চুজ করতে, ধরো আমি তোমার হয়ে চুজ করছি, তোমার তোমার মানে তোমাকে অ্যান্টিসিপেট করে করছি আর কি, যে পোস্টমডার্নিজমের মধ্যে ধরো হ্যারল্ড পিন্টার পড়ছে, ঠিক আছে। তো হ্যারল্ড পিন্টার তোমার ভালো লাগছে, হ্যারল্ড পিন্টার কিন্তু শুধু বললে হবে না, হ্যারল্ড পিন্টারের আর্লি প্লেস নিতে চাও, হ্যারল্ড পিন্টারের লেট প্লেস নিতে চাও, হ্যারল্ড পিন্টারের বায়োগ্রাফি নিয়ে কাজ করতে চাও, কি নিয়ে কাজ করতে চাও। এবার যখন তুমি বললে যে আমি হ্যারল্ড পিন্টারের আর্লি প্লেস নিয়ে কাজ করতে চাই, আর্লি প্লেসের তাহলে তোমাকে একটা লিস্ট বানাতে হবে, কারণ আর্লি প্লেস বলতে যদি 10টা প্লে হয়, 10টা প্লে নিয়ে তুমি রিসার্চ করতে পারবে না, ইউ হ্যাভ টু রিডিউস দ্য নাম্বার অফ দ্য প্লেস, মেবি ইউ স্টাক অ্যাট 6 or 7, ওইগুলো কেন নিচ্ছ সেটাও তোমাকে ভাবতে হবে, ঠিক আছে। তারপরে তোমার ওই টাইটেলটা, তোমার ওই আইডিয়াটা তৈরি হবে যে আচ্ছা আই এম গোয়িং টু ওয়ার্ক অন, ধরো এরকম করে একটা লিখলে অ্যান্টি পোস্ট মডার্নিস্ট স্টান্স অফ early 7 plays of Harold Pinter, this could be a working topic, because you are trying to show that there is no postmodernism, there is no postmodern tendencies in these early plays. Okay, Ria, that's how I would approach
Okay,
it.
sir. Thank you.
Any further? Yeah.
কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে?
And as I said, Hassan has my number, and he has also my email ID. You are free to, you're more than welcome to contact me over issues that you want to talk about. Usually I reply within a very short time, but I might be otherwise busy, and I can take your question and come back later.
ওকে স্যার, আমি একটা কোশ্চেন করে দিচ্ছি স্টুডেন্টদের হয়ে।
হ্যাঁ, নিশ্চয়ই।
আমার মনে হচ্ছে স্টুডেন্টদের দরকার এটা।
অবশ্যই।
একটা রিসার্চে স্টেটমেন্ট অফ দ্য প্রবলেম, এটা আর ওর সাথে রিসার্চ কোশ্চেন, এটা ডিস্টিংশন করবে কি করে? স্টেটমেন্ট অফ দ্য প্রবলেম
একটা ডিস্টিংশন হচ্ছে নাম্বারে, মানে রিসার্চ কোয়েশ্চেন্স 4টে থেকে 5টা হয়ে যেতে পারে তোমার থিসিসের মধ্যে, আর স্টেটমেন্ট অফ দ্য প্রবলেম হচ্ছে তুমি তোমার যে হাইপোথিসিসটা আছে সেইটা হচ্ছে তোমার প্রবলেম, সেটাকে তুমি সলভ করতে চাইছো, ঠিক আছে? তো সেটা একটা হতে পারে, মানে একটা প্রবলেম হয় সাধারণত আমাদের বা হাইপোথিসিসে, রিসার্চ প্রবলেম একটা হচ্ছে, কিন্তু রিসার্চ কোয়েশ্চেন্স অনেকগুলো হতে পারে, যে এই কোয়েশ্চেন্সগুলোকে আমি আনসার করবো, যেটা আমি বললাম, হোয়াট, ওয়াই, হাউ, ওয়েন, ফর হুম, ওয়্যার, এইগুলো, ঠিক আছে? আর রিসার্চ যে স্টেটমেন্টের যে প্রবলেমটা, যে দিস ইজ হোয়াট আই এম গোয়িং টু লুক থ্রু, which is a kind of a single issue, single problem. আর একটা যেটা ডিফারেন্সিয়েশন হতে পারে দুটোর মধ্যে, সেটা হচ্ছে যে রিসার্চ কোয়েশ্চেন্সগুলো দে আর মোর অফ কোয়ান্টিটি, মানে কোয়ান্টিটি বলতে যে কি, কখন, কবে, কিভাবে, সেইটা, ঠিক আছে? আর রিসার্চ স্টেটমেন্ট আছে কোয়ালিটি বেসড, মানে আমার রিসার্চের কোয়ালিটিটা কোথায় গিয়ে দাঁড়াচ্ছে আলটিমেটলি, লাইক হোয়াট অ্যাম আই গোয়িং টু সলভ, হোয়াট বিগ প্রবলেম। মানে রিসার্চ স্টেটমেন্টগুলো এরকম অনেক সময় হয় যে আমার প্রবলেমটা খুবই ছোট একটা প্রবলেম, মানে এমন কিছু গুরুত্বপূর্ণ নয়। আবার ধরো এমন কিছু একটা সেন্সিটিভ জিনিস নিয়ে আমি রিসার্চ করছি যেটার গুরুত্বটা অনেক বেশি, তো সেই অর্থে কোয়ালিটেটিভ দিক থেকে দেখতে গেলে কিন্তু তোমার রিসার্চ স্টেটমেন্টের গুরুত্বটা, তোমার রিসার্চ স্টেটমেন্টের যে রিসার্চ প্রবলেমটা যেটা তুমি দেখাতে চাইছো তোমার রিসার্চে, সেইটা রিসার্চ কোয়েশ্চেন্সগুলোর থেকে আলাদা হয়ে যেতে পারে, ঠিক আছে? আদারওয়াইজ I don't see there is much difference between research questions and the problem of the research statement, which is, well, of course, the research statement is a statement, it ends in a period, it ends in a full stop, and the research questions will always have a question mark, which many people miss because it's so obvious. But when you type out your research question, make sure that you have a appropriate punctuation mark.
আর তো প্রশ্ন আছে কারণ? সো আচ্ছা স্যার, রিসার্চ প্রপোজালের চ্যাপ্টারাইজেশনটা দেওয়ার কতটা প্রয়োজনীয়তা রয়েছে কি?
হ্যাঁ, রিসার্চ প্রপোজালে চ্যাপ্টারাইজেশন, তুমি যে প্ল্যানের ব্যাপারটা যেটা বললাম বা ওই মাইলস্টোনসের ব্যাপারটা যেটা বললাম, সেখানেই এই জিনিসটা আসছে। আমার আলাদা করে বলা উচিত ছিল যে চ্যাপ্টারাইজেশনটা বলা উচিত কি উচিত নয়। এটার প্রোজ অ্যান্ড কনস আছে। চ্যাপ্টারাইজেশনটা তুমি যদি করে দেখাতে পারো, if it is logical, then your research is very strong, then I will consider that your research is really very strong, because you have already, not only have you named your child, not only have you thought what your child will become, but you have already selected clothes for your child, মানে অনেক ফিউচার প্ল্যানিং করে নিয়েছো। এটার কনটা হচ্ছে, ড্রব্যাকটা হচ্ছে যে the examiners, interviewers will start questioning very minutely from those chapters. So I think while it is not mandatory, but it's a good thing if you can name the chapters already in your research proposal. It's a good thing actually.
So thank you. আর কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে? This is last chance.
Now, as I said, I'm like available.
রিসার্চ মেথডোলজিটা যদি আরেকবার একটু এক্সপ্লেন করে দেন।
আচ্ছা, রিসার্চ মেথডোলজিতে তোমাকে এটা দেখাতে হবে যে তুমি কোন থিওরিটিক্যাল পার্সপেক্টিভ থেকে রিসার্চটা করছো। ধরো তুমি পোস্ট মডার্নিজম নিয়ে করতে চাইছো, তো পোস্ট মডার্নিজমটা তুমি কোন থিওরিটিক্যাল পার্সপেক্টিভ থেকে দেখাবে? তুমি কি পোস্ট স্ট্রাকচারালিজম দিয়ে পোস্ট মডার্নিজমকে অ্যানালিসিস করবে, না তুমি ডিকনস্ট্রাকশন দিয়ে করবে, না তুমি ফেমিনিজম দিয়ে করবে, না তুমি পোস্ট কলোনিয়ালিজম দিয়ে করবে, না তুমি নিউ ক্রিটিসিজম দিয়ে করবে? এটা এটা মানে বলতে পারো এটা একটা চশমার মতন, মানে রিসার্চ মেথডোলজিটা, যে তুমি কোন ধরনের চশমা ব্যবহার করবে সেটা ডিপেন্ড করবে তুমি কি ধরনের রিসার্চ করছো। যেমন পোস্ট মডার্নিজমকে আমরা খুব সহজেই আমরা পোস্ট কলোনিয়ালিজম, ফেমিনিজম, অ্যান্টি ফেমিনিজম, নিউ হিস্টোরিসিজম, এইসব লেন্সগুলো দিয়ে দেখার চেষ্টা করতে পারি, ঠিক আছে? তো আর একটা রিসার্চ মেথডোলজির পার্ট হচ্ছে যে ডেটা কালেকশন, লাইক what is your method of reading the data that you are going to collect, মানে ডেটা কালেকশন কি কোয়ান্টিটেটিভ হবে না কোয়ালিটেটিভ হবে? স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্স ইউজ করবে, না ইন্টিমেট ইন্টারভিউ সিস্টেম ইউজ করবে, না গ্রাউন্ড ওয়ার্ক মেথড ইউজ করবে? কোন মেথডে তুমি ডেটা কালেক্ট করবে এবং ওই ডেটাটাকে কোন সিস্টেমের সাহায্যে তুমি ওটাকে অ্যানালাইজ করবে? মানে ধরো আই এম কামিং টু ইউর হাউস ফর ডিনার, ওকে, আই এম নট সেইং আই এম কামিং, বাট জাস্ট ডোন্ট বি স্কেয়ার্ড। আই এম কামিং টু ইউর হাউস ফর ডিনার অ্যান্ড ইউ ডিসাইড হোয়াট ইউ উইল কুক। তুমি জানো না আমি কি খেতে ভালোবাসি, কিন্তু তুমি করলে তুমি মাছের ঝোল বানাবে। এবার মাছের ঝোলে তুমি সর্ষে দেবে না নারকোল দেবে, আমি জানি না আর কি দেওয়া হয়, বাট আই এম জাস্ট সেইং আই এম ভেরি ব্যাড অ্যাট কুকিং। It's up to you and it depends upon which fish you are cooking, right? Like যেমন টক হয়, ছোট মাছের ঝোলের টক হয়, কিন্তু আমি জানি না কাতলা মাছের টক হয় কিনা, আই ডোন্ট নো। সো ইট ডিপেন্ডস, লাইক তুমি কোন জিনিসটা করছো এবং সেটার সাথে কোন টেকনিকটা যায়, এই দুটো জিনিস মাথায় রাখতে হবে। একটা হচ্ছে থিওরিটিক্যাল টেকনিক আর একটা হচ্ছে ডেটা কালেকশনের টেকনিক, মেজর ওয়ে। আরও এর মধ্যে অনেক কিছু ছোট ছোট জিনিসগুলো আছে। অ্যাজ ইউ প্রসিড ইউ উড আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড যে কোন মেথডটা তোমার সব থেকে কাজে লাগবে। যেমন ধরো তুমি কথার কথা বলছি যে তুমি পোস্ট মডার্নিজম নিয়ে কাজ করতে চাইছো, তো পোস্ট মডার্নিজম ইন হোয়াট? ইন লিটারেচার, ইন আর্কিওলজি, ইন আর্কিটেকচার, ইন মিউজিক, কোনটার ওপর? যদি মিউজিক হয় তাহলে তোমার টেকনিক অফ গ্যাদারিং ডেটা উইল বি ভেরি ডিফারেন্ট ফ্রম ইফ ইউর টপিক ইজ অন লিটারেচার, ঠিক আছে? সো দ্যাট ইজ দ্য রিসার্চ মেথডোলজি।
ওকে স্যার।
না, আসছি না তোমার বাড়িতে ডিনার খেতে, ডোন্ট ওয়ারি।
So thank you,
Okay.
sir. Yes, so this is very enriching and very insightful session. বাকি স্টুডেন্টদের আমি আজকেও রিকোয়েস্ট করবো তোমরা প্রত্যেকেই রিসার্চ প্রপোজাল লেখো, লিখে আমাদের সাবমিট করো। আমাদের এক্সপার্টরা রয়েছেন, তারা দেখবেন। আমাদের মক ইন্টারভিউ আমরা ব্যবস্থা করছি, এত কিছু করছি, কিন্তু তোমরা কাজ করছো না। সো অ্যাটলিস্ট এত ক্লাস পেয়ে তোমরা কিছুটা নিজেদের এনকারেজ করবে, লেখার চেষ্টা করবে আশা করছি, এবং খুব শীঘ্র জমা দেবে, কারণ নেক্সট উইক আমাদের শেষ ক্লাস হচ্ছে। সো ইয়েস স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
সো উইথ দিস আই এখানেই শেষ করছি ক্লাসটা দিয়ে।